Nick Seeler has become, under the tutelage of John Tortorella and Brad Shaw, a solid defenseman. He's playing in the top 4. He's blocking 100 shots a night. He had like 7 with 10 minutes left in the game tonight. I don't know how many he finished with, but sounds like a whole lot.
He finished with 8 tonight. 8 block shots, including one that looked really painful.
Yeah, it looked like it got him like on the inside of the thigh or the ankle, somewhere over there in a ton of padding. It looked like it hurt. I like Nick Seeler. He's a nice success story, has really turned himself into something. Good culture guy, tough as hell. He's going to be 31 in June. Considering what they've done with, we can name every defenseman on the team, really.
Yeah.
How bad do you really need to keep Nick Seeler? Now, again, I like him, and it's not the end of the world, because I got to believe, like, a dude who's going to be going into his age 31 season, and his career high is 14 points in 77 games, and he's basically on pace for the same total this year, is going to get, like, $1 million, $1.5 million. This is not the end of the world cap-wise.
I mean, I don't think
what could you possibly pay him?
I would think, if I had to guess, I would project he gets somewhere in the 2s.
2s. I mean, again, still not the end of the world. He's 7.75 right now, so he's basically like league minimum. My biggest thing, it's not even like I want higher end guys, which I do. I'm looking at Sanheim, signed forever. Drysdale, signed for 2 more years after this year, and he's really freaking good.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you want him to be part of your core.
Yeah,
you just trade a Cutter
Gauthier for him.
Yeah.
He better be part of the core, or you trade him for like another dude who's going to score you 45 goals or something, you know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Cam York, assuming he's part of the future as of this moment. Rasmus Ristolainen, signed for a few more years. Seeler makes 5. 6 play.
And Zamula's taken a step forward these last couple weeks. I thought he had another solid game tonight. Obviously, he was involved in that Paling goal. That's my big thing. Like, if they re-sign...
And they have Andre, Bonk.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
If they re-sign Nick Seeler, I am not going to be like railing and being like, this is the dumbest thing. This is such a stupid move. Like, I am not going to be railing against it the way I railed against the Ristolainen trade and the Ristolainen re-signing. However, I do think this is a case... Like, I'll always go back to the Risto thing as like the Ristolainen trade, especially the Ristolainen re-signing, was an example of a team approaching a situation with pre-salary cap thinking. Where, you know what, when you could spend whatever you wanted, like they like Risto because he hits and because he's like an old school type of guy. And if you could spend as much money as you wanted, sure. You know what, like overpay a third pair guy because he hits a ton. It's a luxury signing. You have the money. Who cares? But in a cap world, you have to make shrewd decisions to maximize the amount of talent you have on your roster because there's only so much money you can spend on guys. And that's why I hated that signing so much. With Seeler, it's kind of similar. Like they really like Nick Seeler. Nick Seeler in so many ways, like for hockey men just fucking love the guy because he's tough, because he gets the most out of his talent. He blocks shots. He sticks up for teammates. He's a locker room guy. Like you'll love people who are around the game. They fucking love Nick Seeler. He's everything that makes them feel good and warm and happy inside about being in the hockey game. They love it. And I get why you want to keep him. However, you brought up the key point here where you've got Sanheim signed long-term. Drysdale you just traded for. York is young and pretty darn good, at least right now. Ristolainen is signed for more years, and I don't think they want to get rid of him either because Keith Jones freaking loves him.
And he's been good.
And he's been fine. He's overpaid, but he's fine. Igor Zamula is now establishing himself over these last few weeks as a guy who, like, maybe he is a good third-pair defenseman and solid power play 2 guy. That's 5. Nick Seeler, if you sign him for a few more years, now you've got 6. And yes, maybe with Nick Seeler, you could say, well, we sign him and then he can be our, like, 6-7. He doesn't have to play every night, which, like, fair. But also, if you sign him, that means you're probably overpaying a 7. Like, if you sign Nick Seeler to a deal where he's got like a $2.5 million a year cap hit, for a 5-6, that's a perfectly fine deal. Totally cool with that. If he's your 7 because you're like, well, we got to get Emil Andre in there and Oliver Bonk looks real good, he's ready, then suddenly you have an overpaid 7. And you have an overpaid 7 because you really wanted to have Nick Seeler because you love him. And to me, this is an example of a situation where, like, it will be a hard decision. It will be hard to move on from Nick Seeler. But I think it's the right decision to move on from Nick Seeler. And I think the Flyers in this situation would be blinded by just how much they like Nick Seeler, the style of player he is and the person he is. And instead, you lock yourself into a situation where, how does Emil Andre get playing time? How does Oliver Bonk get playing time? Like where do these guys fit? Do you just have to wait for guys to get injured? Because I don't think they want to trade Risto, and then everybody else is pretty much locked in. Like I think this is a case of, where does he fit? Aside from the fact that you feel like you need a Nick Seeler.
And the idea, like, all right, maybe we're overpaying a little bit for a 6'7", whatever.
And Boost Wholesale just said he's been playing way better than a 7. You're right. Yeah, he has.
Absolutely.
But if he's on this team and you re-sign him, how does Emil Andre fit in? How does Oliver Bonk fit in? Like you need these guys. Otherwise, why the fuck do you have them?
And that's like it. We've been told all along, like Danny Briere said to you, we've been told, the coach has told us, listen, we know we're having success, but we are still rebuilding. Re-signing Nick Seeler smells a lot like a team that believes its own bullshit. Like, oh no, actually we are this good. And maybe they are. And even I, who am on the bandwagon, am a little blind to it. But it's just like, you don't re-sign a 31-year-old on the year you admit you're rebuilding. And I hate to disparage the man who scored a goal tonight, but we saw them make this mistake maybe-ish with Scott Lawton.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yo, he scored 18 goals. We got to keep him.
It's fair.
Culture and production. Culture and production. And now it's like, okay, he's got 4 goals. Like, and you're not paying Scott Lawton for goals, obviously.
Yeah. It's not like, he's not killing you.
No.
But there's also just an element
where
of like,
do these other players play?
Yeah, like where are you going to fit the guys that are supposedly part of this? That's my thing with Seeler, is that I just feel like you're getting blinded by all the things you like about him, and you're not acknowledging that, like, you need some spots for these kids. Otherwise, how's this team? And again, maybe you're right. Maybe the Flyers are just a friggin' wagon, and like all the guys who I think are just okay are actually great. Like, I could be totally wrong, but like, I don't look at this defense core that they have right now and say to myself, like, yeah, that looks like a Stanley Cup winning defense core. I'm sorry, I don't.
No, it clearly doesn't.
We all silly like the mayor.